it looks to a lot of people, I'm sure, as it does my wife, that it's kind of an unorganized bit of matter that's in there, and really it's not. I know where everything's at. I've been reloading in there for many years. I spend most of my time actually in that reload room, even more than I do in the museum, because I love to shoot, and I like to shoot these old guns especially. Okay, my friends, let's go into the reloading room. And in some places, you almost have to walk sideways because it's kind of grown in on me since I've been reloading here over the last number of years. You'll probably notice right here that these blue tools are Dillon reloading tools, and they are some of the best. And these are 550 presses, and these are not the newest ones that Dillon makes, but they're just really good tools. The one on the left is made to load ammunition, both pistol and rifle, with small pistol or small rifle primers, and then that way I don't have to change the priming mechanism, just change the primers after I run out of them. And each one of them that you see that's got its own powder measure is a different cartridge that we deal with. Now, these I normally do for pistol and 2.283s and things like this that my grandkids and my kids shoot a lot, because you could really pound out the ammunition with this rather than do it on a single stage press. So here is the one that we do 2 through 3, 45, and so forth. And come on in a little bit further. This is my cleaning station, and of course there's lots of stuff around it and whatever. And here's a rifle that I'm working with right now. It's a 1903 Springfield, and it's my cast bullet military rifle, and that shoots very well. And I belong to the Cast Bullet Association, and this is one that we used a lot of. And here is some 45s, and if you look at that, take a good look at it, look like it's not copper wash. This is powder coated bullets with some Eastman powder coating on 45, and it actually works really well. You'll have to consider that someday, because you don't get leading with powder coating, and you can get leading in other ways. Let's go a little bit further so we don't take too long. Here's some homemade shot that I make, and I'm just going to grab just a small handful of it and show you in my hand. Here's some homemade shot that I make with a Littleton shot maker, and you don't have to have a tower or anything. You drop it 1/4 of an inch into a Sierra brand antifreeze, and actually it makes really good shot. It may be not as perfect as one that's dropped from a tower, but when you're shooting 35 yards, it doesn't have to be that perfect in order to break clay pigeons or even bring down game. And so this is lead shot, and some of the best lead shot that I make comes from will weight lead. I have a lot of pure lead too that I use, but it works really well. This is the station here that we use powder coating, and we powder coat all bullets, and we've got the toaster ovens that put that on, and that will be, if you're interested, that'll be a video by itself. Now, there's several videos on YouTube already on powder coating, and a lot of them do a really good job. I've got a good friend of mine that his powder coating is so superb because he is detail oriented, and you can't believe why he would be, because he's an accountant, and so everything he does is detail oriented, and he's a good friend of mine, and so we compare things all the time. A lot of 45 auto cases, more parts in blue for the Dillons. And now I'm going to give you kind of a little glimpse of what's going to be a video in the future. This machine here is a Corbin reloading press, and this is the press where I can take empty 22 brass as such that's cleaned, and this machine here knocks the rim out of those cases. And you can see these cases have no rim on them. Now you need to do that because we're using these for the jackets for 22 caliber bullets, and in the case that I do it, they're about 57 grain 22 caliber bullets. You're using 223, 22 250, 220 Swift, 222, 220 Mag, 222 Magnum, and so forth. So this works very well. And so this is the first step, actually the second step in making those cases. The first step is you have to clean the brass to get all the dirt and so forth off of them. And the second thing is that you put them through this machine, and this knocks the rim out of the case. And so sometimes I'm sitting here for an hour and hours getting that done. And when I've got it all done, I end up with maybe 2,500 or 3,000 of these cases, and I put it in a Dutch oven and get it red hot, let it cool, and it anneals the case so that I can form the ogive, or the rounded portion of the case, and begin to make the bullets. So that's the first step. Here is the little shot maker right here, and this is quite a mechanism. It's got a little hinge on the back, and this is a pot that is electric, and it melts this alloy, lead alloy. And when it melts the lead alloy, you skim off the dross off the top, and when it's good and melted, very quickly you take this wood out and drop it down, and then these are little drippers. And there's a little teeny hole, very small hole, in each of these 7 drippers, and it when it's dropped down, it drops into this Sierra brand antifreeze. Now it's not enough antifreeze in it right now. This is only, the antifreeze has to be 1/4 of an inch just below the rim of this ammunition box. And when it drops out, it comes, and then it comes on this side. Can you show this side, Quincy? See the little trails that you've got here? That's where the lead hits that, comes down in the stream, and then drops off of this individually. 7 little streams of lead, just as fast as you could imagine, going into this pot. And most of them are good. And so what you do is you take this soapstone and you keep it soapstone here so that it beads up and comes out in a circular ball, and that's your shot. So that's all I'm going to tell you about that for right now, and we'll have a video on that later. If you're going to come in a little bit further, here's loaded ammunition here, cases and so forth. And these are 45 Colt. A lot of people refer to them as 45 long Colt. That's an error. It's 45 Colt. And this is what we use for cowboy action shooting. Some of the ones we use are black powder. And when it says black powder, there is black powder, we mark them so we keep track of what's going on. So let's go in here really quickly. Here's a size lubricator. I make my own lube for a size lubricator. For you guys who do it, you'll recognize that this is a lube tube that fits both in an RCBS, and of course those others too, and to a Lyman 450 size lubricator. It works really well. Normally these tubes are running, I guess between $4 and $5 a tube, and I can make them for a nickel. I'm not real tight, but I like to save a few dollars, and that's a few dollars. Then I've got all these different pots and so forth along here. This station here is where I reload primers. And here's some primers that I've reloaded, and you'll be able to look in there, and you can see that there's a bunch of anvils. And you can see there's the cups. And what do you think is in the center of that cup? But cap gun caps. And they make really good primers. And I'll show you how that's done. And what I've done is I've worked out a system of it's a way of putting your primers in there, and so it's easy to make sure your cap is centered when it goes through. And I use 2 to 3 cap gun caps to go in it. all these boxes here are cap gun caps. When I go to the supermarket or to Walmart with my wife at Christmas time to buy gifts for our 40-some grandchildren, and some of them are still in the stage of cap gun size guns. She goes in one direction, I go in the other direction. She's buying toys, and I'm buying cap gun caps. And she said, "What are you doing with those cap gun caps?" I says, "Well, you don't need to know. I'm taking them home." She says, "Well, save some for the kids." So I have to leave some in the store when I do that. But cap gun caps really well. And so I'll talk to you about cap gun caps and reloading primers, and also how to make your bullet loop for casting bullets at another time. And it's actually really a lot of fun to do that. Making cap gun cap primers is time consuming, but they actually work really well. I've tested those against factory-made primers, and they work just as well as factory-made primers. The only trouble is 2 to 3 cap gun caps does not generate nearly as much power as a large rifle magnum primer, and so sometimes you've got to put a booster in with those. I'll explain how I do that, and it works very well. Okay, so that's just a little bit on that. Here is the bullet molds. And there's some of the dies. Now, these are the dies that I have that are extra. There's about 300 sets of dies there. If you look up above my photographer right here, you'll see that there's boxes like 3220, 11 by 50, by 58R, Mordell, 4065, 4575, 4440, and all these. And they're all in here on all sides. And then I've got 2 rooms on the outside of these rooms here. And all together, I reload for almost 175 different cartridges. Plus, I reload for a lot of shotguns and muzzle loaders and things like that too. And the reason I keep them in boxes is I can't remember all the loads on how to do it. Some of these things for some of these obsolete rounds takes you a month or 2 months to be able to figure out how to load that particular round and get the tools rounded up and to fire form cases and trim and anneal and all the rest of the stuff you do. So keep a detailed list of what you have to do step by step by step, all the tools that's necessary in that box. So instead of taking 2 months the next time I want to shoot it takes me 15 minutes. I got everything out and I'm ready to go. And then I keep an inventory list of all the primers, all the powder, all the reloading equipment for each one of these cartridges. And so it makes it easy and possible to do it that way. And so here's the bullet molds for rifles and pistols on this side. And then pistols only on the other side. And then here is bullets. And you can see I've got them marked. It starts at 501, 515. I've got some for 57 caliber, 75 caliber 2 and bullet molds. But this is all the bullet molds that you need for that. And I keep it stacked so I know what I'm dealing with. The same with the reloading dies. It gets smaller as you go down. Okay, underneath here is more lead. I've got several tons of lead outside, but I keep this inside so I can keep it moisture free, so when I get ready to pour it in the pot, I don't have to worry about having some moisture on it, which it could be a catastrophe. There's several pots here, and I can run 3 pots and sometimes 4 pots, depending on what they are, on 2 circuits of power. This is an air conditioner, and up above it is a commercial grade fan that sucks the fumes and so forth out of this room. And I can tell you it really works good. You can have this room just as cool as a cucumber, and in about 15 minutes it's hot when it's in a summer day by just sucking it out. And likewise in the winter, it can suck the heat out of this room too. But it keeps it safe for a man to work in here with lead fumes that you have. And so here is the different pots. I've got some old ones. I've got the newest one I've got is this Lyman Magnum 25, which is my favorite. It's electronic and it's digital, and it's really easy to understand. And then I love the RCBS too. These are bottom pour, and the only top pour one that I have is this one, and this is a Seiko, and I use it only for using linotype bullets, which are really hard bullets. And I use that exclusively because I think you get a little bit better bullet out of a top dip than you do out of a bottom pour. And I can't prove that, but all I have to do is think it. And that's good enough for me. I don't have to prove it to anybody, but it shoots really well. And I've got some guns that I use them with. And so here's some of the bullet molds to deal with. Now, I've color-coded my lead. Wheel weights are, this is supposed to be red, but it looks kind of brown. And the ingots are brown. The lead for the linotype is blue. And the soft lead is black. That way, no matter where I go and what I pick up, I know exactly what's in that pot. And that's important. Okay? And here's lead here. And I've got lead outside too. And so, coming down a little bit further, here's a 450 Sarge lubricator. Now, the second step, well, actually the third. The third is clean your cases. The first is clean your cases. The second is to knock the rim out of the cases when you get ready to make 22 caliber bullets. The third is you have to make the core. And so right behind you here, let's if I keep him from tripping. Well, you can't see it very good. Anyway, I've got scads of lead wire, and it's right down here. Quincy, can you show them right here? That's lead wire. And that lead wire is in big rolls. And I've got a die that fits on a tractor, and we make take a pig, which is a piece of 2-inch black iron pipe, and put it on an old tie plate, fill it with lead, soft lead if you can get it, that's the best. And as soon as it's just solidified just enough, there's a guy on the tractor that gives it the juice, and he shoots that lead wire out that ram, and as fast as you can roll it up on a reel, you make lead wire. So when you've got the lead wire done, and it comes in all different diameters, the lead wire is like this, only it's really long. And of course, I cut it in short pieces and straightened it out a little bit. But it's soft lead, and so you can bend it just like a piece of wet macaroni. And then you take and put it in this cutter, and it's a special cutter that cuts it off. It's adjustable for length. See how that works? And then after you got a bunch of it done, you take the lead, you take these lead cores and you weigh them. And they weigh within 1/10 of a grain. And that's pretty good. And then I'll explain to you what you next. So after you've got those lead cores done, and after you've annealed the brass 22 cases, then you come over to this press here, and you take those cases and you put them in these jackets that have already been annealed, and you have another, this is a Hollywood press, and you press that core into that case, so there's absolutely no chance, it's tons of pressure, that there could ever be a void. And a void is a little bubble or pocket of air. And if there's an air pocket, that is almost always on the side, not in the center. And so it not only throws the weight of your bullet off, but it's off so that it doesn't fly because it's not symmetrical, and the weight is on one side, and so after it gets so far away from the muzzle of the gun, it'll start to tumble and you lose it. These jackets and these bullets that I make actually shoot really good. Now, whether they shoot as good as burger bullets or some Hornadays or so forth might be questionable. They've got some really good equipment and some good, honest, hardworking, dedicated, and smart men and women that build those bullets. But these are free. And when you get my grandkids shooting thousands of them a year, this is the way to go. And this stuff is made by Corbin, Dave Corbin in White City, Oregon. And he is just a smart guy, and he is easy to talk to, and he'll be one guy that you'd like to get some information on. Here is the machine that I make these lube tubes. And so I make a lot of them. And I'll show you how to do that as we go on too. Here's another sizer lubricator that I use. Here's a bunch of bullets that already been cast and sized. And I try to make all my 45s in red, and each particular caliber would be a different color, so it's easy to recognize what you've got. Here's all the bullet molds for cast bullets for muzzle loaders. And here is the bullet mold that you can cast your cores instead of making them out of lead wire. And you can do 4 cores at the same time. And this is adjustable so you can get exactly the right weight. Then you fill it up with soft lead primarily, open it up, and this is how you knock the cores out. And it works very well. The only problem I've ever had is once in a while I get it too hot and it tins the inside of the mold, and then it sticks there like it's been soldered, and that's a bear to get that thing cleaned out and get it going. So that works. Now some more stuff here. Here's the crimping candeler machine. I take the bullets those 22 caliber bullets. This is one that hasn't been polished yet, but you take and set that in. It's adjustable, and then you bring this over like this, and just that quick, you got a crimping candeler. Now that's one that was already crimped. Let me take one that hasn't been crimped, and I'll show you how it works. Here's one that hasn't been crimped, and it's one that hasn't been polished yet. And you set it in, and it's adjustable with this screw here, so you know how far you want that crimp on it. You put this over, see it's got a knurled thing right here. Set that down, and you hold it just there's a crimping candeler. Pretty cool, huh? I don't know where I got that from. The guy's probably still looking for it. Here is a jar full of cases that have already been annealed and everything. When they're annealed, you can take them easily with just your thumbnail and bend them. See that? You can't do that on a regular 22 case. And so here's the shotgun loader. And this is Pontus Warren. Here's some homemade shot again. And here is the press that I love above all others. This is a Hollywood press, and it's an old press, probably dates back in the 1950s. So this press and I are just about the same age, except I got it beat a little bit. And but it's a turret press. And so I've got this set up with the dies. It takes 2 more dies to finish these bullets. And I got them locked in there so that I don't have to adjust them every time. And then here's the other pieces that fit into them. And so it is a fantastic way of dealing with it. Here is the machine that I progressive loader called a piggybacker that I use for loading 45 Colt, and it works really good. And you can see that I'm a gunsmith too. You see, I lost the spring that goes to this to hold this in tight, and so instead I got a piece of clothes hanger wire and a rubber band that holds it in. That's my spring. Here is the partial of the library on just reloading books that goes all the way down here, double layers that we deal with, and a lot of them are antiques and so forth. Now here is an inventory list of, this one is in my 4-wheeler shed, which is right behind me here. And here is a list of different, these are different cartridges all the way down. That page, that page, that page, and that page. And then in the other room, which is right behind the bathroom, in the utility portion of the shed, is another one. There's that page, that page, that page, that page, that page. I guess that's it. Each one of those are a different cartridge. And then there's reloading stuff up above there. Yeah, anyway, here's the smokeless powder bin. Here's some in a box made special for black powder. There's some black powder in there. Some more bullet molds. Here's my 50 BMG loading equipment here. And I'll bet you nobody can figure out what this is. You've probably all seen a machine like this. This is an inertia bullet puller for everything up to 50 BMG. So I had to pull some bullets on 50 BMG, just took the shell holder, slipped the loaded cartridge in the shell holder, put it on there, tie it down, and then smack this on the concrete. And as you smack it on the concrete, it loosens up. It actually comes out really easy because that bullet is so heavy, and you capture the bullet on top of this, powder around it, so you're able to salvage them both. So I call it a redneck bullet puller. And it works very good. And so here's some more, and here's the stuff up there. These are two things that you've probably seen before. This is a Seiko lead hardness gauge that tests the BHN Burnell hardness of the lead that you've got. So you can tailor the lead for the type of velocity and type of bullet that you're loading. This one is actually surprisingly accurate too. This is a Lee. It's easier in some ways to use than the Seiko, but it's harder in other ways to do it too. But between the two of them, you can deal with it. Now, my son was just given a bunch of lead. And of course, the way that most of us test lead is to see if your thumbnail can cut into the lead. This barely touches it, so I'm guessing it might have a Burnell hardness of maybe 12, and we'll find out. We'll test it and see. And if this turns out to be linotype, I'll be a happy camper because I use a lot of linotype, and it's hard to get and expensive. And so here's the area that I do most of my this is over here. This is more bullet molds, and these go all the way up to 454. And here's some more dies, and the smaller dies are on this side of that cabinet. And and some of the bigger bullets here. And now this is one that I just got. My son Farns, who's got the gun store in Elko, gave this to me. This is a Lyman powder, electronic powder measure. I mean, you set it electronically for the amount of powder that you want to go in grains, and you punch the button and it rattles it out, and perfect, right to a tenth of a grain. It's enormously a great opportunity. I keep a regular electronic powder scales right here beside it to test it, to make sure that it's coming out like it's supposed to, but so far it has worked really good. This is another thing that has really helped, and this is a chamfering tool made by Hornaday, and of course whoops. And boy, I'll tell you what, that does the job. With that, it takes a lot of the work right out of it. And the trickler is a great deal, but if I don't have to use it, I don't need to. And up above here, we have all the leather gear that we use for cowboy action shooting. And I've got it all inventoried for the waist side, the guns that it fits, and so forth, when we've got people that are just new to the sport and want to get that stuff. This is the way we deal with it. And then these are a few of the slings that these are some slings. These are a split sling that I make, and I'll show you how that's done and why this is so good later on. But this split sling has really a lot of good reasons why it works so good, and so I'll explain that to you as we get another video into that too. And here is a 38 special RCBS. It's called a piggyback machine. And you probably be looking at this and say, well, why have you got it all bandaged up? Well, it's better for me to bandage this up than when I'm walking by bandaging my arm up, which I've done plenty of time and raking across this and bleeding all over the place. And so I bandaged him instead of me. But this works very well. And it's an old time kind of a machine, but gee, it just does the job. Here's shotgun shells, and I test all my shotgun shells before I take them out to shoot. You notice this one says loose loads, which means it's perfectly set for the loose loads that you need for cowboy action shooting. And I shoot a lot of 38 special. If you haven't got one of these, you need to think about getting one. It's a bore scope. And I'll show you how this works and how good it works when we have another video too. But boy, you can see things in your barrel that, well, I got a good friend of mine who I love dearly, but he doesn't want to use it at all because he doesn't want to. He says you can see imperfections in the barrel that would make a person think that it won't shoot when they actually do. And he's absolutely right. You can see those imperfections, and a lot of times imperfections in the barrel will still cause it to shoot really good. Maybe not one whole groups, but really good. And so that kind of is a full circle of what's going on. I'm just going to give you just a glimpse. And here's my primer supply. And no, they're not for sale. And no, they're not for trade. And yes, I intend to have some when I die. And so this is just a kind of a glimpse of the reloading room and the things that we do. And I spend a lot of time in here and love it. On a winter day when it's snowing and blowing outside, as long as the power's on, I'm in here. In the summer day when it's 100 degrees outside, I turn the air conditioner on here. There's two of them in the museum. I'm in here. And I'm old enough now and have spent enough time working. I do it because I deserve it. Don't you think so? That's it.